So, welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys had a good weekend. So, let's see a few things to establish. Remember, you have a homework that is due Wednesday. So, it's going to be due at the beginning of the class. I think I've made this clear. So you don't have to type any of this stuff, okay? Just write it down on a piece of paper. You don't have to use engineering paper. I don't mind whatever paper you use, okay? As long as it's not too wrinkled or anything like this. I'm okay with this. Prefer if you write on one side as well. This isn't all in the syllabus. And on that day, usually I'll accept late paper on the next day. Because it's so close to the exam, I want to publish the solution on that day. So at 4 p.m. that day will be the cutout, okay, for me accepting homework. So and let me know if you have questions for exam 1 as well. On the exam, you're going to be provided an equation sheet, which I also posted on Canvas. So you have exam 1 equation sheet, so you'll have it there. You don't have to bring it; it's just there to see what's in there. And also posted an additional example for you guys to practice and work on. It's also titled Exam 1 Practice Problem. So, any question before I start for the review? No? Okay, good. So this has been a little bit of a while. So what we started with is discussing some the main packaging functions. Okay. We explained quickly what's the difference between the protect and preserve. That's something, if you took principles of packaging, you are very aware of. But protection has more to do with mechanical damage, and that's what we are focusing in this class with transport. So, a few important things here. So, distribution and transport packaging, you need to include and take into consideration all movement of the package. That's from the point it's manufactured, okay, all the way down to the consumer and its use. Okay, that's very important. So in a way, you also should think about distribution and transport packaging before your product is actually being manufactured. You should think about what will be its fragility. Is it going to be able to survive? And it's going to be reasonable to be able to design a package with reasonable cost to be able to bring your product all the way to the consumer. Obviously, packaging does not add, partially if you're thinking about distribution, transport packaging doesn't add value to your product. Its goal is really to protect it, to conserve it. Okay, let's see. This was something we talked about quite a lot in your first homework assignment as well, but you need to know your product, okay? And there's a few things here that we discussed quite a bit, okay? What's the limit for the working load and all of these. And it depends on your product, obviously, but in some cases, these are questions you should ask yourself. Yes.
On the previous slide, why did you add manufacturing?
I'm sorry?
Why did you add manufacturing to that? What does that matter?
I didn't add anything. It was there before.
Oh, yeah, like why is it there?
So, in a way, when people, if you want to design your product and try to ship it, okay? So, if you realize that you may have some component that may have problems during distribution and transport, maybe they're very fragile, you should involve manufacturing and see if there can be alternatives or other things that you think about design that may be change easily and things like this. Yes.
From before, on the first one, you added end of life under packaging functions.
Okay.
Why
so it's one of the packaging functions, but it's not one of the main one. It's just these days with sustainability. Do we have a different slide than?
No, when you were the first time you were going over it, you did
So end of life has to do with sustainability and how you should think of your packaging as including end of life. It's now more important in a way that to think about sustainability as a packaging function, but these are the main ones. That's what I said. And again, this is an introduction. It's not something we're going to focus on this first slide. Showing your goals. Okay, so this is relatively straightforward here. Nothing the key here. So this slide was to introduce or start to actually think about understanding and knowing your environment. Okay, we discussed that we had higher damage during the summer month. Okay, and typically most of our commercial goods, okay, are still shipped, and it's going to be like this for a little while with paper-based material, okay, corrugate. With the summer months, you have usually a lot higher moisture, okay, and paperboard is affected by moisture. So that was under the idea is that high moisture was cause for more damage during the summer months. It can be due to boxes exposed to rain, but just high moisture in general. Again, here it's pretty straightforward. Again, and that series of slides were to start to have you think about what is the environment, okay, and how it can influence your packaging design. In here, what we discussed was an illustration for different stacking methods. Actually, this one, if you remember, was two stacking methods, and one's like a hybrid, because at the bottom you have column stacking, and at the top you had cross stacking. Okay, you can see where the corners matches on those pallets. And the idea, if you remember, is obviously when you have column stacking, you have corner and corner, so you have a lot more strength. Okay, in your box, so you could have a weaker box and still be able to bear the weight if you have column stacking. But if you have column stacking, it's not very stable. Okay, so that's why people often use cross stacking, because the boxes cross stacking is also called interlock, okay, pattern. So you have more stability, but since you don't have corner on corner, you lose strength and you weaken your load. So this is a combination of both. So the bottom boxes where you have more weight to bear are column stacking on top to help with stability, because these pallets were pretty high. You use cross stacking. Okay. So in here, what we discussed a little bit is, let's say you have losses, issues with your shipment, okay? You're going to start asking questions, okay? Try to understand what happens. And in here, we mentioned as well that communication and documentation is key, meaning you should have ways to communicate your different stages of the shipping. You also should document any types of issue you encounter. You document as well any type of changes that are made to your package or packaging system. So, and there we discussed some question, okay, if you encounter losses, okay. So these are questions you should be able to remember and ask, okay, some of these, okay, and also justify why you should ask these questions, okay. And again, so is this a recent problem? That's a valid question, because it may help situate what could be the cause. Maybe something would change. Okay? Also something that if it's a recent problem, you may have actually no solution. If it's a problem that occurred in the past or it's been going on for a little while, you may have some solution that has been used and maybe forgotten at some point. So have you seen this problem before? Actually connects to this a little bit. You may have solution for this, partial losses during such season and so on like this. So these are things that when you start thinking about it, you should be able to come up with some question that can help solve or understand the problem better. Okay, this is not going to focus too much on this.
Can you go back? Can you explain the sentence? Also, it has been estimated that the hidden blah 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 at the bottom. What is that?
Yeah, it has been estimated that the hidden damage reaction costs are typically 5 times higher than the cost of cargo repair or replacement. So hidden damage cost may be just the cost of having people managing the loss, okay, of the cargo, either having shipped back, okay. Also the effect, if you think into account the consumer confidence into your product, okay. So maybe somebody, if you keep having hidden damage, or if you keep having issues with a product, or you have constant damage, people may be tired of buying this product and go somewhere else, okay? loss of confidence into a product, into a consumer or a supplier, things like this. So these are all hidden cause that you don't necessarily see right away.
Okay.
Uh,
So it's like something breaks with the consumer, and then they never just give you feedback, so you never know about it.
that's not necessarily this. Again, is if a product is broken, okay, and let's say somebody purchased that product, right? Okay, so if he has a bad experience with you shipping your product to the consumer, he might decide not to deal with you anymore. It might say it's such a bad experience that it doesn't recommend it. Okay, unless you have a history of good, I would say, good business and something is reliable. An example I can give you is the following. So let's say you buy a Coke, okay, and it's flat. Typically, if you love Coke, you're going to still buy Coke. You're going to think, oh, that's just a bad bottle, okay? But let's say it's Dr. P soda, okay? And then it's a new product and you buy it, okay? And it's flat, okay? You might say that product sucks, okay? And you're not going to buy it again, okay? So obviously that's a little bit more involved, but that's, since I did not deliver the product properly or there's something happened, then you have loss of confidence, and you can include that as a hidden damage or reaction cause to the product, to the problem. Okay, so in here, what we discussed is a relatively simple schematic to illustrate a few things, okay? But what you have is optimized design, okay, older design, okay, and other design, okay? So if you have here, okay, what you have is two things, okay? If you don't want to redesign your product here, you are over packaging, okay? So that means you're paying to ship to buy more packaging component that you don't need, over protecting. In addition to that, you're paying for shipping this thing, so you have a lot of costs and expense that can be removed, okay, from this. In here, you are under packaging. That means you're going to be having damage because the protection against some intensity to the environmental hazard and distribution is lower. The combination of the protection coming from the package and the characteristic of your product, okay, or basically its capacity to be sustaining shocks or vibration. The combination of two is lower than the total intensity. So you can do two things here. You can modify your product, okay, give it basically more resistance to the environment, or you can play with the packaging, or both. It depends, okay. But the idea, okay, is you want to walk the line in a way, okay. You don't want to overpackage. You want to try to really optimize your design to make sure that you don't overpackage and you're not facing that or hazards that are going to be consistently higher than what the combination of your product and packaging system can endure, if you want. So that's the idea here. It's pretty simple, but that's one of the basic approach you have to use for packaging, distribution packaging design. So this was just really an introduction. Okay, we had a few important things, but it's a lot of these concepts is something we keep discussing as we progress. So in here, we had a quick reminder of knowing the product, and then that's really where we started to learn about the environment and a lot of characteristics associated with the different mode of transportation and so on. So if you go, we started with road transportation, okay? And what we talked about here is that there's a lot of variation of the, I would say, quality of the temperature control, okay? It depends of the driver sometimes. It also depends if you have a trailer that is well maintained with a chute that is in order, okay? If the temperature is well set, okay? But one thing that is very important, okay, is that trailers are designed to maintain the temperature. They are not designed to cool down a load, okay? So that is important. So if you have a temperature-sensitive product and you load it, let's say hot, in a trailer, it's going to take forever to cool down because you don't have the refrigeration capacity to do this. So that's pretty straightforward. And control atmosphere, okay, we talked about this. What it is when you control, this is for fresh produce, okay? This is where you control the gas concentration in the air, okay, to extend the shelf life. So how it works is you lower the oxygen content in the air and you increase the carbon dioxide content in the air, okay? By doing that, you lower the respiration rate of your product, okay? And if they lower their respiration rate, that means the resources, which are limited, will last a longer time. Control atmosphere means you have an active control of those gas concentration. You monitor them and you adjust, okay? It's not something that is used a lot, okay, in road transportation. One of the reasons is because the journeys are usually pretty short, okay? And that's something that is as benefit on the long run. Modified atmosphere packaging is different in a way that is passive, okay? If you think about salad bags and things like this, you may use modified atmosphere packaging, but it's passive. You design the bag to maintain a certain concentration of gases inside, but there's no control. This is at the trailer level where you control the gas concentration. In air transportation, we mentioned that there was quite a lot of variation, okay? But this is something we need to understand. That variation is due to the different logistics events associated with air transportation. So one of the issues is when the load is waiting outside before being loaded on the plane and after it's being unloaded from the plane. That's where most of these variations come from. Within the plane, you may have some variation. You may have detrimental temperature, higher temperature that your product will require, but the big variation are really due to some of the extreme you may see when your load is on the tarmac, okay, before it's loaded or after it's unloaded. That's the tricky part. There's no relative humidity control, and this can be really low or sometimes really high as well. The reason is that if you have temperature control or ventilation inside the cargo hold, usually you mix it up with the air outside in high altitude, and as you experience in the cabin of a plane, it's very dry, okay? So the opposite is if you have a cargo compartment with no ventilation, then it gets really humid in there because when you drop the pressure, okay, your product is going to lose it. If it's fresh produce, you're going to release a lot of moisture, and then it gets almost to saturation. It can get to saturation. Pressure variation is something important with air transportation, 20 to 30%, okay? And that can have an impact on your package. If you have a sealed bag, okay, or a pouch, or any of these, you will have a variation in your volume because of that pressure variation. And delays are something that you have to deal with air transportation. It's still, obviously, the main advantage of air transport to all the other mode of transportation is speed, right? So it allows you to have international shipment within a day, which is not something any other mode of transportation can do. Obviously, if you go from Canada to the U.S., yes, but I mean, Europe to Canada and so on. So the delays is when you may have a 2-hour delay. So the problem with the delays is always also linked to the time that your load may spend outside. Okay, that's where the delays plays a big role. If the load is delayed and it's still in the cold room, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, but it's when it has to stay outside. This is where problems arise. Or if it's staying in the plane, and if the plane is delayed, you maybe have experienced that as well when the AC is not turned on in the plane. You have to wait. That's not pleasant. Okay, until the engines are powered out, you're going to have limited control on the temperature. So how's the load carried on airplane? We mentioned quickly that a lot of it, okay, is carried on passenger aircraft with your luggage, okay, and some, pretty much almost 50-50, 55-45 is carried on full cargo airplane or combi airplane. You guys remember what a combi plane is?
Half and half.
Half and half, yeah, half passenger and half cargo if you want on the main deck, okay? So the time spent as well, it varies depending of the location, but a lot of variation. That's an example of a combi plane when you have passenger and cargo on the main deck. In here, all of these slides, okay, were there to illustrate some of the good things and some of the issues with air transportation. You don't have to study these slides, okay? What you have to pick up from there is that you can have perfect shipment, international shipment with good temperature control. This is the first example, okay? Everything is good, very little variation. Except when you arrive at Dubai, when you have like soaring temperature, very high temperature, very detrimental. Okay, this is a short time, but you can understand it. If it were there for a long time, you're going to have issues. The second example illustrated delays, okay, where the load was sitting outside for almost 8 hours before a flight, which is what caused really a serious problem, okay, if you have temperature-sensitive product. So things can be good, things can be problematic due to high temperature or delay. So this is what these series of slides illustrated, okay? So marine transport or sea transportation, okay? We talked about this is obviously a slower mode of transportation, but you have very good temperature control, okay? You have also the marine container of very good insulation. You have possibility for relative humidity control. Control atmosphere is also available and used a lot, okay, for these long journeys. So obviously, if it's an option, marine transport works very well. So then we shifted from environmental condition inside the different mode of transportation to how the products are handled. So we talked about regular pallets, okay, wooden pallets, okay, and we also talked about other alternatives, okay, and one of them were slip sheets, okay. We had a video showing the use of slip sheets, okay. They can be again paper based, so they can be plastic, okay. They're just sheet where you load the product on top. And you need a special forklift to do this, okay, that pinches the edge of the slip sheet and slide it on these flat plate. So obviously you need a special equipment throughout the distribution chain if you want to use slip sheet, okay. And here this is, I would say, about these two different types of handling technique. This is what's more important, okay. So pallets, universally adaptable, okay, it's everywhere. They're costly, they take up space obviously because they're pretty bulky, and they may be difficult to dispose of if you have damaged pallet and they cannot be fixed, so that may be an issue, and a lot of these accumulate, okay, depending on how you're using them and so on. Slip sheets are cheap, okay, they take up little space, they're light, okay, but you need to have the equipment throughout the distribution chain, that special attachment to your forklift. Equipment is more expensive and also it's slower to operate. You can add other things as well. You can clearly see in the videos we watched that things are not as stable in a slip sheet that they are, okay, on a pallet, particularly when they are handled and moved around. So that's another issue that can be associated with slip sheet if you have them double stacked and things like this as well. But it depends on your application. That can be a solution. Last option for handling technique is clamping mechanism. Okay, that just clamp the load on the side. But you see that used mainly with like large items, okay, appliances and things like this. So to go back on the pallets, they can be made of different material. A lot of times it's going to be wood. Okay, some different industry may require or prefer using plastic pallets. Okay, or metal pallet that can be cleaned and sterilized, and they look better. Okay, some of these more advanced pallets also may have embedded tracking devices in there, which also can be an addition, an incentive for some company where you can use RFID technology for inventory management and things like this, which sometimes might be more difficult to install nicely on the wooden pad. So let's see here if I go through this. Yeah. Okay. So wooden pallets. Okay. Again, that's typically what is used for most industries. The problem if you're dealing with an international shipment, you have to have pallets that be treated, okay, either heat treated or fumigated, and that's to decrease the risk of contamination due to invasive species. So this is there, but this is something just to be aware of, okay, that for international shipment needs to be treated. Then we looked at our pallet design and also handling or storage system can influence or can be very important to prevent damage. And here we saw pallets being stored improperly or not very designed to be stored on their racking system when you have damage to the pallet. And obviously that can cause problem when the pallet is taken out the shelf, okay, things can fall off, okay, cause damage. This is different types of pallets. In here you see some operator issues here when this pallet, okay, which is pretty wide, has been put, okay, on the I-beam where the stringer matched the I-beam, and in this case doesn't match. Obviously this could be fine, but potentially can also cause damage if you don't pay attention to these things and if the operators are not paying attention to these things. This was just to illustrate other types of racking methods, okay, that can provide storage. Some of these are not always convenient, okay, if you're having perishable product because it's basically first in, last out, okay, it's something like this. So that's not nice for perishable product, but if you have perishable product, you can also have some of these where it can be accessible on both sides, so you load on one side and then unload on the other. Obviously, if you have a system like this, it takes more space, but that allows you to have first in, first out. So it depends on what you're dealing with, okay, and volume you're dealing with. So other alternatives to this is corrugated or paper-based pallets, okay, that some people are working on solution based on paper-based because of easy recyclability, less weight, okay. You can, depending if you resize the pallet, you can cut down the size. You may be able to maximize, optimize if you want to fit 2 trucks for your shipments. So this was a case where IKEA were very successful with designing paper-based pallet for some of their shipments. So standard size for pallet, okay. In North America, okay, GMA, so Grocery Manufacturer of America, established that standard size 48 by 40, okay. International size is close, but slightly different, which may cause some issue, but you should know 40 by 48, 48 by 40, okay, these are the nominal size that you are dealing with. So, what are the issues? Okay, a lot of damage during distribution and transport. The Food Marketing Institute actually identified pallet issues responsible for about half of the observed damage. Okay, that's quite significant. Okay, so what are the causes? Why do pallets cause damage? One of them is poor pallet footprint. Okay, So that's where you have boxes that maybe exceeds the pallet, okay? And if that happens, then the corners of your boxes, for example, are not well supported, okay? And the boxes can fail. You can also have a pallet if you're not dealing with a full deck, okay? That means that the boards on your top of the pallets have openings, which happens quite a lot. So if your pallet is not well designed and then you have boxes where their corner are falling in an open space on top of the pallet, even though they don't exceed the pallet, then that can also fail, okay? And in a way, what kind of failing happened in this case, sometimes it may not be obvious, but you may have the product inside the box that bears some of the weight and can get damaged. Sometimes it's just stability of the pallet that gets influenced by this. So, and that's where we talked about here of this damage. 50% is pallet stability. That means boxes potentially falling off, okay, or not the way being evenly distributed. And pallet overhang, this is where boxes exceeds the pallet, okay, and then you have the potential of weakening the boxes, but also boxes being knocked, okay, or being impacted when the forklift drivers handle the pallet and store them and move them around. Yes.
So is the footprint like the size of the pallet to the ratio of the size of the pallet to the load?
I'm not saying necessarily is the ratio, but it's how the boxes you have on the tier matches the pallet itself. Okay. So loose nails, other fastener, also a problem that you can understand that if you have boxes that are put on there and you have one of these sticking out, it can rip, okay, or damage. So usually you cannot just put boxes on a pallet by themselves. You need to stabilize them, okay? How you stabilize them? You can use strapping. And if you use strapping, you use corner guards so you don't cut through the boxes. This is what you see here. Those blue things are paper, like thick cardboard that are used to strap the boxes together, okay? Obviously you see column stack, not very stable, but strong, so you need something to help with the stability. And in here, obviously straps are used. What else I wanted to add here? Okay. Stretch wrapping can be used as well. We also watched a little video about how it can be done. Okay. So the idea with stretch wrapping, you need to catch the bottom of the pallet, like this guy is doing with the corner guards here to prevent the load to shift on the pallet. So if you have stretch wrap, okay, it needs to catch the bottom of the pallet as well to try to really have everything unitized together, the pallet with the boxes as well. It is mentioned here that obviously you can do that by hand, okay? People going around and put in stretch wrap. What happens if it's done by hand? You can have too little, you can have too much, you can have it not tight enough, okay? All of these things. You can be perfect as well, okay? It's just that you have potential for human error if it's done manually. If you have a machine that wrap your pallet, then you can control how much you want, how you want it, and it's more consistent, okay? Stretch wrapping can provide protection against moisture. Obviously, if it's plastic wrap, it helps, okay? We already talked about column stacking and interlocking, which is the same as cross stacking. So it helps with stability, obviously, but since you don't have corner on corner, okay, your load can lose 50% of its stacking strength when you do this. So it's always a balance between the two. In addition to this, obviously, you can have high friction printing ink that can be used to hold things in place. You can have glue that is applied between the boxes, okay? And you can also use tear sheets, okay, to improve compression strength, okay, and also the stability of the load. Tier sheet, okay, they're not slip sheets, okay. What they are, and if you have a pallet like this, and you remember, I also had a video. You remember the guy with the forklift, and he will stop and go, okay. They're sheet that you put between the tiers, okay, here, and they are. I also a sample going around. They have like very high friction, okay. So what they do is they maintain the cohesion between the boxes, okay, and they also help distribute the weight, okay. If you have the corner that is going to be not necessarily on another corner, but it helps distribute the weight more evenly, so it worked pretty good. So tier sheets help really for stability, okay, and help with the weight distribution as well. Okay, in here, what we talked about and introduced in this series of slides was mixed load, the concept of mixed loads, which is very challenging. Okay, this is where you have pallets of stuff that come to a distribution center, and then typically to go to the different retail store, you're not going to ship whole pallets. You're going to ship the few cases. Okay, that means you need to mix the loads onto pallets. Okay, and that's a challenge because you may be faced with boxes of totally different sizes. Okay, to be mix and match and put together puzzle-like on a pallet and be shipped. So shape and form of the box can be a challenge. Also, temperature requirements may also be a challenge. Okay, you can have product that needs to be, let's say, between 0 and 5 degrees Celsius. Having to be shipped with product needs maybe between 10 and 20 degrees Celsius. So obviously, you need to make a decision, and some products are going to suffer from this. Okay. So that's some of the issue with Mixo, and this was to illustrate how it looks like. You have bananas with apples, okay, and tomatoes, which is interesting. Onions at the bottom, with a pallet on top. That is not great. And then what we introduced is that some of the response and solution that the industry came up with when faced with mixed load problems was reusable plastic container. These plastic boxes here, okay? And this is, so corn shipped in wooden crates still used to this date, okay? But plastic container, the nice thing is they stack together, even if there's different products in there, they're also easy to match in a mixed load situation. The variation you will have with those boxes is you will have variation in height, but they will have always the same pattern. As you see here, you can understand that this is the short side of the, they're both the same orientation. So that's 24 inches each, so that's 48. And that's 16 inches each, which will also make it 48. So these boxes are typically 24 by 16, okay? So they match nicely on a pallet, and they will all have the same size, but they will have different heights as well, depending on the product you are loading, okay? And one of the reasons that if you have a pretty dense product, a big box of these are getting really, really heavy fast, so you may need smaller boxes. So other picture of mixed load. So in the 90s, that's what happened. So people are starting to use reusable plastic container, okay? And the nice thing about reusable plastic container is that obviously they are reusable. They can be exposed to water or humidity, no problem. They have a lot of openings, okay? So for fresh produce, it's allow good cooling, circulation of air or water, depending on the cooling method, okay? So another positive, they stack together nicely, they interlock together, so it's great, okay? So now corrugated people, so that's the story here between the common footprint, is that they realize, wait a minute, we need to do something as well to allow some of our consumers to deal with mixed load problems. So let's offer some standard sizes with also some technical advancement that will allow these boxes also to lock together to help with stability. So that's where the corrugated common footprint came from, okay? It's basically the corrugated answer to the increasing market share of reusable plastic containers. So these boxes again come in different sizes. Okay, they can have different height, but they can have full size and half size, as you see here. And basically, they allow good load. They fit together nicely. Okay, and helps as well with operation when you have to build a pallet with mixed loads. Yes.
What did you say corrugated footprint is? There's two footprints, right? Regular footprint and then corrugated footprint.
No, the footprint is the footprint, but it's just that the corrugated industry called the corrugated common footprint is basically those system of boxes that match together. Okay, that's what's called corrugated common footprint. So boxes with a common footprint, okay, and how they match together. So what are the benefits of these? Okay, better cube utilization. Okay, they all match together. It's easy to maximize the use on a pallet, the space on the pallet. If they all together, so you have less need for stretch wrapping. Also, if people don't have to, I always say that, but play Tetris as fitting the boxes on the pallet, okay? If it's all standard size, so it reduces the labor cost. In this case, labor is the same cost in a way, but total cost because people will spend less time putting those boxes on pallets, okay? If boxes are designed to fit together as well, that means usually you're going to have better stability, better weight support. That means your product is not going to be damaged as much due to fall of the pallet, okay, or being put at the bottom of another pallet or being damaged because it's have to bear a lot of weight and things like this. So that's one thing. So RPCs, they are reusable. So that means you have to store them, okay? The nice thing about RPC, though, is that they fold. If you remember as well, I brought you an example in class. So when they're delivered, they're folded, so they take little space. Okay, you can erect them and then use them, and then when they're done, you close them back and you store them. But they need to be stored and they're returned at some point. Okay, to be cleaned. Okay, labels have to be removed and so on. So corrugated footprint, obviously, they're one-time use. So that means you use them. Okay, unless students have to move and they go and reuse them to move their stuff around, okay? They're going to be recycled, hopefully, okay? So that's one thing. They are also lighter than RPCs, which also can be a benefit if you look at shipping costs and so on. So this is, all these pallets and these things are used for road transportation, but you need to understand as well that road transportation has to be included even if your load is going to go by air or marine shipment. At some point it's going to be trucked. Okay, so pallets, okay, and slip sheets will be also involved in something that goes by air transportation. But for air transportation, what we talked about, we introduced pallets, okay, and aircraft, what they look like, and so on. So aircraft pallet. Remember what is the funny name we give them?
Cookie sheets?
Cookie sheets.
That's what that is? I tried to Google it and I couldn't find it. I just kept on finding
Google doesn't know anything.
Cookie? Okay, so cookie sheets is like the
pallet itself.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's just, so right now you don't see very well, okay, but let's see.
I called somebody who took the class and I asked him, like, do you know what cookie sheets
So what was his name? If he doesn't remember, I'll have to adjust his grade. So that's what they look like. Okay? I should add this to my slides. Okay, so they look like ginormous cookie sheet. So yeah. So that's a stack of aircraft pallet. I don't know where. It's very small on this, but you see what it is. So
yeah,
it looks like an air cookie sheet. So what we discussed here is that in this case you don't have a pallet, meaning a wooden pallet. Boxes are manually placed on the cookie sheet. Nothing covers them in this case. They're produced, so usually, unless you use a very special technical cover. It's not going to be covered because fresh produce are going to be basically respiring, and if you block all respiration, they're going to die. Okay? Yes.
Are unit load devices the same as aircraft pallets?
ULDs, which stands for unit load devices, include both pallets and containers. Let's see. A few more minutes. Okay. This was an example of pallets being loaded. Okay. And obviously, you see the pallets. They're, as long as you respect the footprint, it's okay. But if you go on the upper deck or the lower deck, you're going to have different height requirements. Covers, if they're used, that's not always good because they can get pretty warm. This was a technical cover we discussed, the Tyvek cover, which allows gas transfer to the pallet itself, so it's really good for fresh produce. Aircraft container, often referred as bins, okay, but they're made of light material, aluminum most likely, sometimes fiberglass or polycarbonate, but most of them are not very light, so they're not insulated. It is the same thing that you will use to ship meat and ship your luggage, okay, when you fly. So they can look different ways depending on if you go to the main deck, upper deck, and lower deck. That depends on their shape to maximize the circular shape of the aircraft profile. So I'm going to stop here for today. I'm going to finish the review on Wednesday.
Wait, do you have like a
If any of you have questions, okay, just make sure that email me and you can come and see me as well, make an appointment if you
Each
need
one
to.
is different, so if I do like blue, it's like an important like point that I want to remember. Purple is usually like a word, like if I want to remember the definition of that word. If I write anything like in the margins, I'll usually do it in green, and then any
So they're like side notes that you put?
side notes, and then like any equations that I have, I'll put in red.
Damn, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Can I just take a quick?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just.